Good morning. Happy Wednesday. Man, time flies when you're having fun. Anyway, let's talk about the James Freeman arrest again. James Freeman is making lots of claims about his arrest. And I want to make sure that everybody understands that despite having seen the video doesn't show us anything. We don't know what went on. We have the word of James, and we have the end results, and we have what we heard people saying during the video, but we didn't actually see anything once the action started. And James is making some claims that, as an attorney, like if I was his attorney, and I don't at all want to be his attorney in this particular matter, I just want to make that very clear. I'm not licensed to practice in Arizona, and I have no interest in representing James in criminal or civil matter, because he has had at least 3 attorneys that I'm aware of for his Fort Huachuca case, and none of them are willing to step up to the bat for him on this one, so that should tell you something. It certainly tells me something. Anyway. So what did I, as an attorney, see? I saw James yelling and being obnoxious to the cops. Now, is that a crime? Absolutely not. But James is going to end up in front of a jury. He's facing a felony. I can't imagine he's going to give up his right to a jury trial, but he's going to be in front of a jury. And what's a jury going to think of him? My bet is that most people on a jury aren't going to so much favor the sovereign citizen, James. And they're not going to so much favor someone who, when given what sounds to a normal person, like a reasonable order, like a reasonable command, like something the officer has the right to do, and the officer does have the right to do it, it sounds like James goes from a 2 to a 10 in terms of his response. And then when James is taken down, you hear the officer saying, "Stop resisting." Now, James is going to say he wasn't resisting, but at the same time, James was on the ground yelling stuff like, "Don't touch my camera, stop touching me, stop punching me." He was yelling, he was barking orders to the cops. And a juror can make a reasonable inference that James was in fact resisting. A reasonable juror could make that inference. I'm not saying it happened. I'm not saying it didn't happen. So cool your jets. And no, there's no way for me to verify what happened. It's all going to come down to who does the jury believe, the cops or James. And I'm giving you information as to why a jury might believe the cops rather than James. Then you have James making the statement that the reason why James was charged with the aggravated assault, the felony assault on a police officer, is because the officer busted open his knuckles punching James. Now, if that is the case, and there's strong evidence that it's not the case, because the best evidence of being punched that James can offer is a slightly pinkish, I think it was his right eye, but I'm not entirely sure. No bruising around his eyes that would evidence being punched. No broken nose, no puffy face. I've hit a man or two in my time, and I've even busted open a knuckle a time or two. And anytime I've ever busted open a knuckle, the guy's face hasn't looked as pretty as James's face looked. Just saying. But if the officer is entitled to use force to make the arrest, and he was making an arrest, despite what James tells you, if you get tackled to the ground and put into handcuffs, you've been arrested. That is an arrest. I mean, I don't know a court in the world that's going to say you haven't. I don't know a court in the world that would say James was not arrested at that point. But if your actions, your failure to submit to the arrest, entitles the officer to use force, and if the officer gets hurt using that force because of your resistance, then I can see how that could be aggravated assault, or at least assault on a police officer, which would make it aggravated, because they're entitled to use force and there's no requirement that they allow themselves to get hurt. And if he didn't resist, they wouldn't have to use force. Now again, I'm not saying he resisted. I'm just saying that, there is evidence out there that a reasonable juror could hear that would make it sound to them like he was resisting. And it's going to come down to who do they believe? Sovereign citizen James or the cool, calm, collected cop who told him 1 billion times to get out of the crime scene, out of the perimeter. Think about that. Thanks for watching. Have a great morning.